Welcome back, everybody, to State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin. Now, I've been looking forward to talking about this all day, I have to say. Vice President J.D. Vance stunned world leaders at the Munich Security Conference. This is a gathering of the elite, and he gave them a blunt message. Europe's greatest threat, said America's Vice President, is not Russia or China. It's internal decay. It's internal problems. Free speech, the collapse of free speech, the erosion of democracy, weak border security, mass immigration. J.D. Vance really took aim at leaders of the European Union and also here in Britain for abandoning the values that once made this continent and, of course, Western civilization strong. His harshest words of all were for Britain, calling out the arrest of a man for silently praying outside of an abortion clinic as a chilling attack on religious freedom. He also described mass immigration as the most pressing issue for the continent. Now, J.D. Vance really delivered this wake-up call that arguably Europe really needs, but will it listen? Now, I'm joined tonight by the chairman of Republicans Overseas here in the UK, Greg Swenson. Now, Greg, you are the expert on Team Trump in US politics. We have you in the studio regularly. Now, just tell us a minute here. J.D. Vance comes into Europe, basically says to Europe, get your house in order. Just tell our viewers, if you can, what does that tell us about the way that Team Trump are viewing Europe right now?
Yeah, I think they're worried about Europe. And I thought one of the interesting lines from J.D. Vance was he referred to the UK as our good friends or great friends, something like that. You know, he wasn't scolding as much as he was saying, you really ought to get your act together, right? And think about this. You know, the great Western values were exported by the Europeans all over the world, and including to the United States.
Yeah.
And you know, our great documents are based on the great documents of Great Britain. And yet the entire continent is turning its back on great Western values.
I mean, I remember Samuel Huntington, the great writer, when he wrote the book Who Are We? About American identity, he made the argument that, you know, American identity is fundamentally based on lots of values that came from these islands. And now for us to see a vice president coming over and saying, hey, guys, you're forgetting about your foundational values is quite a wake-up call.
Right. You know, the Europeans have turned their back on that. And it's not the people, it's the elite, it's the leadership. And how that happens is a longer story. But it's amazing how there was literally no reaction from the audience for, you know, when J.D. was speaking. I mean, they were just dead silent. And I saw a couple of clips where they focused on a few of these kind of snobs sitting in the audience, rolling their eyes, looking at the person next to them, you know, kind of implying that this guy's an idiot or this guy's a clown. He hit so many great points. It was a fantastic speech. The feedback has been enormous.
I mean, I'd urge everybody to go and watch it. But, I mean, I think it's, you know, I said this as well this week. You know, I think it's rich for European elites to be critical of Trump and Vance. But the reality is no one in Europe is increasing their defence spending. No one in Europe is actually making a sort of, you know, strong case for the values of Western civilization. And I think I've tried to put myself in Trump's shoes, and it's not just the free speech thing, which I think has riled Americans because of the First Amendment. It's also the Chagos deal. It's saying, well, we don't really care about America's strategic priorities. It's not increasing spending. It's asking America to continue to help out while Europe's not stepping up to the table.
From a tactical perspective, that was a horrible move by Keir Starmer and Joe Biden, for that matter, who endorsed it and encouraged it. And so, but, you know, that hopefully can be fixed. But the deeper rot in the European culture right now is what J.D. Vance is worried about. You know, he talked about free speech. He talked about illegal migration. And I think both of those things are what the people care about. And that's what's really interesting, is that the people are really upset with a couple of things. You know, probably more than that. Cost of living is probably a big one, too.
Well, let's just see what he says on free speech, because we've got a clip here from this really seismic speech. Let's put this clip out to our viewers.
The threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America. And perhaps most concerningly, I look to our very dear friends, the United Kingdom, where the backslide away from conscience rights has placed the basic liberties of religious Britons in particular in the crosshairs. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat. If you're running in fear of your own voters, there is nothing America can do for you.
Well, I mean, he's clearly been reading a lot of stuff on X from disillusioned Brits, because I listened to him thinking, wow, I agree with every word.
Absolutely. And I think I would argue a great majority of the people do. That's why the conservative parties here in the UK are polling at 50. I mean, the movement is happening, right? It's happening even in Germany. It's the leadership that's way behind on this thing. So,
now,
yeah.
Juditha, there is this point, you know, European elites hated it, European people got it. What's there to worry about?
A percentage of European people got it. The key is this, is that when you're dealing with the political position you hold, do the job you were sent there to do. You came there to talk about defence, talk about defence. If you want to bash them over the head for not meeting your 2% minimum, I champion that all the way. Go for it. If you want to talk about what are the efforts being made to end the Ukraine war, I champion that. Go for it. But to posit yourself as the morality police on which ideals people hold dear, who are you to do that? That is not your position. That is not what you have sanctioned to do. When somebody steps out of the boundaries of their role, you show yourself to not have self-discipline. That's not a respectable
Greg, he overstepped the mark?
No, I don't think so. And in fact, he made a great point when he said that the voters no one has voted for illegal migration or uncontrolled migration. Like at no point was that voted for by the people of any of these countries. So I think that was an important point, right? It'd be one thing if they were doing what the will of the people encouraged them to do. But that's not the case. It just was some kind of idea that some bureaucrats or some elite politicians came up with 10 years ago,
Chloe,
15 years ago.
if I can just bring you in briefly, is J.D. Vance showing Conservatives the way forward? Is this a different brand of conservatism?
What, the UK Conservatives or just...
Global Conservatives. I mean, it seems that he's really attacking the liberal order.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like whether it's right-wing or left-wing parties that are part of what we in the UK might call the uni party, they are completely out of touch with what voters want. I think there's never been a bigger disparity between what the electorate want and what our leaders want. They're living in a complete bubble.
Well,
and it really is quite telling that the audience there didn't really respond to what J.D. Vance did, but online it was a big hit.
Well, there we go. We are living in a bubble, and it's up to J.D. Vance and Team Trump to get us out of that.